Books being adapted into film seem to be all the rage nowadays, and have been for decades now. Sis, of course, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by the amazing Roald Dahl. I mean, come on, we couldn't do a video like this without it. Thanks to two remarkable films from 1971 and 2005 respectively, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has become an insanely popular book and film franchise. Everyone already likely knows the plot of this classic children's book, but did you realize how crazy the original book was? Yeah, the films adapted the books in a different way. The original story is actually much darker and different, as the children seemingly die in the books. Wait, what? Yeah, the children who disappear until the film's end are all but confirmed dead in the original book. It might be a children's book, but it's super dark when you read into it. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has sold a whopping 13 million copies all around the world, partly due to two film adaptations and various stage play versions as well. I guess they really did find a golden ticket with this one, didn't they? It's been such a profitable and successful franchise, and we are so happy to talk about it on today's list. But this next one is quite insane. You won't believe it. We all know so many films that have been adapted from books. But did you know that Jurassic Park was originally a book? We didn't until we started researching for today's video. It's insane. I can't believe one of the biggest films of all time was adapted from a book. How amazing is that? Yes, the fantastic dinosaur epic from director Steven Spielberg was adapted from a book released in 1990. This book was wholly original when it was released all the way back in 1990 and followed a scientist discovering dinosaur DNA. Like in the film, the book was already a New York Times bestseller, which is crazy to see. The fact that most people don't even realize the film was adapted from a book, let alone a New York Times bestseller, is insane. Spielberg saw the success of the book and decided to bring it to the screen. Jurassic Park has sold around 12 million copies in the United States alone. Jesus, man, that's so many copies for just the US. Imagine what it's like all around the world. Because of the success of the original film, book sales skyrocketed, proving that this franchise was going to be huge. We saw the Jurassic Park franchise bloom into what it is today, but it overtook the book. I mean, did you realize that the films were based on a book before today's video? Exactly. It's not something people talk about when it comes to Jurassic Park. Despite this, though, just like the film, the book is a classic. Speaking of classics, this next book is one of the best of all time. Of course, that is the iconic movie, The Shining. Back in 1977, Stephen King released his iconic book, The Shining. We all know King, right? He's one of the most prolific horror writers of all time, for God's sake. You must know him. He's known for other stories such as It, and of course, Carrie. The Shining is easily one of his most popular books, and it's for good reason. This story is absolutely fantastic. We've spoken about a few books and films on today's list, but many of them don't exactly outshine the original source material. It's hard to make the original story better, but somehow, The Shining film by Stanley Kubrick does so. Few films outshine the written word, but The Shining is much better than its original book. Even with the book selling around 700,000 copies all around the world, the film by Stanley Kubrick stands out more. The adaptation is one of the best works from the late Kubrick, and might be one of the best films of all time. It sparked various documentaries on its production, the design that went into each and every scene, and of course, the amazing acting from the cast. It's truly a masterpiece, and a film that deserves to be on today's list. Like, come on, who hasn't heard of The Shining? It's just that iconic, right? When talking about iconic books and films, we have to talk about this next one. The next book series to talk about is, of course, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Released between 1937 and 1955, the Lord of the Rings series is easily one of the best-selling series of all time. And we aren't saying that lightly. The Hobbit book alone has sold well over 140 million copies around the world, with The Lord of the Rings selling around another 150 million. Jesus Christ! That's a lot of books, right? Well, yeah, it's such a good series. The popularity of the series was already there, but skyrocketed with the release of a film franchise. Over the last few decades, The Lord of the Rings has been adapted into various different mediums, from radio to theater, and of course the most famous out of the bunch being the beloved films. The films are as iconic as they come, and it's well deserved. The Lord of the Rings might be the best adaptation of all time, and it's not even direct. There are many changes from the books, so it's definitely best to check out the original material. They've sold hundreds of millions of copies, so it won't be hard to get yourself a set. Now, our final book series to talk about. We have spoken about many books in today's video, from classics to iconic series to some of the best ever written. This final one is probably the most relevant. That is, of course, the Bridgerton series. You might be wondering, Bridgerton isn't a film. Why are we talking about it? Well, the popular Netflix series is being adapted into a film to tell certain stories from the books, so it fits today's list. Bridgerton is an iconic Netflix series and was actually based on a book series by the same name. The books weren't incredibly popular, but they had a niche in the market. Netflix saw this and took it upon itself to make the stories into an amazing series. And honestly, it worked. Bridgerton has become so popular that ever since the Netflix series was released, the books have sold well over 750,000 copies and are on their way to 1 million. Yeah, it's become that popular. Despite the Netflix series being pretty different from the original books, the adaptation has been a huge success. Just like every other series on today's list, it was so successful that it sparked more content. Netflix has released multiple seasons and plans to keep adapting. It's truly amazing to see, and we love how well it's doing. For those writers who are still alive, it must be amazing to see your work not only get praised by thousands across the world, but to be brought to a whole new audience through a film or television series. What an honor, am I right? So, from The Shining to Jurassic Park, those were some of the most popular films that were actually based on books. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching.